Always have a lawyer on hand when signing marriage contracts. You never know when an eternal love clause has been misinterpreted. If you follow every money-saving tip you read on financial blogs, you may end up poor because you didn't save enough money to pay for the signatures. When listening to advice on raising children, remember, a single misunderstanding can turn an angel into a little dictator. Be sure to read life's instruction manual carefully. A small misinterpretation can make you lose your guarantee of happiness. Before applying the latest home remedy you found on the internet, double-check the recipe. It may be that the healing vinegar is only good for dressing your salad. When following productivity advice, remember, one misapplied tip can leave you more busy planning than actually doing something. Before continuing, just check if you are already subscribed to this channel, because I am preparing a special series with the best quotes from Mark Twain to help you face life with more ease and purpose. Be careful about following all the rules of etiquette to the letter, because you may end up more concerned with your napkin than with the conversation. When adopting motivational advice for overcoming difficulties, remember, one misinterpretation and you may end up exhausted trying to be perfect at everything. If you follow every fad diet that comes along, be careful. The only thing you may lose is your patience. Be careful about following advice from a longevity expert. He may just be trying to live long enough to see if his own methods work. If you obey all the rules of high society etiquette, don't be surprised if you end up as stiff as the collar you wore to impress. Read the sermons on humility carefully, but remember, one misinterpretation can lead you to be too humble to claim every last piece of bread. If you follow all the advice on how to be a good friend, be prepared. You may end up so available that your friends have to book you like a doctor. Be careful about blindly trusting economics manuals. You may find yourself saving every penny and only realizing how expensive the effort was when you're already too rich to spend it. When reading advice on how to dress for success, remember, a single mistake can leave you trapped in clothes so uncomfortable that success never has a chance to find you. If you follow all the advice on the path to happiness, don't be surprised to find that it's a long road full of tolls that no one told you you'd have to pay. Be careful about following leadership guides to the letter. You may end up being the only one who follows your own orders in trying to be a great leader. When you read about the advantages of a simple life, remember, the author probably made his fortune before he discovered that simplicity is the key to happiness. If you follow all the advice on how to be a good citizen, don't be surprised if you end up so civic-minded that even the trees along the street greet you. Be careful about following the latest rules on nutrition. You may find that when you eliminate all the harmful foods, you are left with nothing but water and hope. When you follow all the advice on how to save time, be prepared to discover that you have spent more time planning than actually enjoying your saved minutes. Be careful when reading biographies of great men. A typographical error can make you think he started out as a beggar, when in fact it was just the title of the first chapter. If you follow personal organization methods to the letter, don't be surprised if you end up with a to-do list so well organized that there's no room for any real tasks. When reading about the secret to business success, remember, a single misinterpretation can lead to you opening a company with closed doors. If you blindly follow advice on how to find true love, be careful. The recipe may call for so many ingredients that true love gets lost along the way. Be careful when applying advice on how to deal with criticism. You may end up so impervious to criticism that even your own criticism won't be saved. When reading about how to achieve happiness through meditation, be prepared. You may become so enlightened that you forget why you wanted to be happy in the first place. Be careful when following tips on how to be a good listener. You may end up listening so much that you forget to speak up when it really matters. If you follow all the advice about avoiding conflict, you may end up so peaceful that even street fights ask for permission to happen. When following rules about how to stay young, be careful. One slip and you may end up with so much vitality that growing old seems more like a blessing than a curse. Be careful when following tips on how to make the most of your retirement. You may spend so much time planning how to spend your money that you retire before you know it. Let me tell you something important. The simple fact that you took the time to listen to these lessons already makes you the most intelligent and far ahead of most people. It doesn't matter how you listen to these quotes, whether you're washing the dishes, cleaning the house, exercising, or lying down for a moment of rest. If you were able to reflect, that's what matters. Tell me in the comments below, what are you doing while listening to these lessons? If you blindly follow advice on how to raise independent children, beware. They may become so independent that you need to schedule an appointment to see them. When you follow advice on how to be happy at work, be prepared for the possibility that you may discover that the real secret to happiness is simply not working. Beware of following advice from a success expert. They may have more success selling advice than you will have following it. If you follow advice on how to be popular to the letter, beware. You may end up with so many friends that you have no time for yourself. When you follow all the advice on how to be productive, beware. Your productivity may increase so much that you need a break just to stay productive. Be careful of applying advice on how to manage your time. You may forget to take a minute when you divide each minute into chunks. If you follow all the advice on how to avoid stress, be careful. You may end up stressed out by trying to avoid stress too much. When you follow advice on how to find meaning in life, be careful. You may spend so much time searching for it that you forget to live it. Be careful when you follow advice on how to be the perfect host. You may end up the only one not having fun at your own party. If you follow all the advice on how to achieve inner peace, be careful. You may find that peace arrives, but you realize that the rest of the world didn't get the message. When you follow advice on how to avoid procrastination, remember, a small misinterpretation can make you so proactive that even your coffee breaks seem like a waste of time. Be careful about blindly trusting relationship advice books. You may find that when you try to save yours, you realize that the authors are single. If you follow all the advice about how to be authentic, don't be surprised if you end up being so authentic that even your former selves feel cheated. When you read about how great men made their fortunes, remember, a small misreading can make you think their fortune started with luck, when it started with inheritance. Be careful about following advice about how to be successful without effort. It may be that the only thing that is effortless is spending the money buying that advice. If you blindly follow the rules of dining etiquette, be careful. You may forget to eat by worrying so much about the correct use of cutlery. When following advice on how to live a fulfilling life, be careful. One mistake can leave you with a schedule so full that fulfillment is postponed until next year. If you follow all the advice on how to succeed in life, be prepared. You may find that when you succeed, you will discover that the real struggle was just surviving the excess of advice. Be careful when following advice from moralists. They may be so busy telling you what is right that they forget to practice what they preach. If you blindly follow all the etiquette manuals, don't be surprised if you end up so polite that no one feels comfortable around you. Before applying any advice on how to be a great speaker, remember, one small mistake can turn you into someone who talks a lot but says nothing. Be careful when following the latest advice on how to be more efficient at work. You may end up producing piles of papers that no one wants to read. If you blindly trust tips on how to achieve financial success, beware. You may have to spend all your money buying books on how to make money. When following tips on how to find your soulmate, remember, one slip and you may find them, only to discover that they have completely opposite tastes to yours. Be careful when trusting books on how to find inner peace. It may be that, at the end of each page, the only place you find peace is in the list of chapters you have finished. If you follow all the tips on how to become irresistible, beware. You may find that, once you become irresistible, even flies follow you. Be careful before applying personal organization methods. One small mistake, and you may end up organizing your life so much that there is no room left to live it. Be careful about following fad diets. You may lose only patience if you try to follow them all. If you blindly follow advice on how to raise perfect children, be careful. Your children may end up too perfect to live with imperfections. When reading advice on how to make the most of every moment, remember, a single misinterpretation can make you so obsessed with making the most of everything that you forget to make the most of something. If you follow all the advice on how to improve your self-esteem, be careful. Your self-esteem may grow so high that it becomes difficult for others to live with. Be careful about applying advice on how to be a balanced person. You may become so balanced that you end up stuck in the same place forever. If you blindly follow advice on how to maximize your time, be careful. you may spend so much time maximizing that the clock runs out before the task is done. Be careful when following advice on how to be the best version of yourself. You may forget who you were before the versions. Be careful when applying advice on how to become more resilient. You may become so resilient that nothing else can affect you, not even common sense. If you follow all the advice on how to control your emotions, be careful. You may end up with only the boredom of discipline. When reading about how to become a master negotiator, remember, one small miscalculation and you may end up negotiating away what was already yours. If you blindly follow advice on how to connect with the universe, be careful. You may connect so much that you forget to disconnect from time to time. Be careful when following advice on how to be more productive. You may end up producing so much that you need a team just to deal with the results. If you blindly trust advice on how to be more charismatic, be careful. Your charisma may grow so much that even mirrors will start to compliment you. When following advice on how to overcome your fears, be careful. You may find yourself no longer afraid of anything and embarking on adventures that would have been wiser to avoid. When following advice on how to overcome your fears, be careful. You may find yourself no longer afraid of anything and embarking on adventures that would have been wiser to avoid. If you blindly follow advice on how to balance your personal and professional life, be careful. You may find yourself in such perfect balance that you can't move. If you blindly follow advice on how to balance your personal and professional life, be careful. You may find that the balance is so perfect that you can't move. Be careful when applying methods to increase your creativity. You may become so creative that even your ideas can't keep up with you. If you follow all the advice on how to be a more optimistic person, be careful. You may become so optimistic that even problems start to seem like good opportunities. When following advice on how to be more disciplined, remember, a single misinterpretation can make you so disciplined that even fun needs to be scheduled. Be careful when applying tips on how to stay positive in any situation. You may become so positive that even pessimists try to avoid you. If you blindly follow advice on how to maintain perfect relationships, be careful. You may find that by trying to be so perfect, the only relationship that lasts is with the mirror. When reading tips on how to cultivate inner peace, remember, you may find yourself so at peace that you forget to interact with the world around you. Be careful when applying advice on how to improve your communication. You may find that by becoming so communicative, you may talk so much that your words lose their meaning. If you follow all the advice on how to excel at work, be careful. You may find yourself excelling so much that you end up working alone. Leave the quote that had the biggest impact on you in the comments below. I'll tell you about my favorite quote from this video, which goes like this. Be careful when applying tips on how to improve your memory. You may remember so many things that you forget what really matters. If you blindly follow advice on how to be an effective leader, beware. You may find that by becoming so effective, no one else will dare to follow you. Beware of following advice on how to achieve success without effort. The only thing that is effortless is the money you spent buying that advice. If you blindly follow advice on how to be more flexible, beware. You may become so flexible that you bend over backwards until you lose your way. When reading advice on how to live a life without regrets, remember, the biggest regret may be the time you spend trying to avoid all regrets. Beware of following advice on how to be more efficient. You may find that in the end, all you have gained is a reputation for being busy. If you blindly follow advice on how to be successful at everything, beware, you may fail to live at all. Be careful when following tips on how to avoid mistakes. The biggest mistake may be never having made one. Always keep in mind that when following a travel guide, a typo may take you to a completely different, and if you're lucky, even more interesting destination. If you follow advice on how to achieve emotional balance, be careful. You may end up so balanced that not even your emotions know where to go. If you blindly trust recipes for quick success, be prepared for a shock. The only quick success may be that of the author selling these recipes. Be careful when applying advice on how to cultivate patience. You may spend so much time waiting for the right moment that it never arrives. If you follow the advice on how to maintain control to the letter, be careful. You may end up holding on tight, and the thing you needed most will fall apart between your fingers. Be careful when following advice from books on how to be more assertive. One small mistake can make you so assertive that no one else will dare disagree, not even you. If you follow all the advice on how to find your calling, be careful. You may find that when you get lost in so many directions, the only calling you find is to keep looking. When you read about the advantages of a life without regrets, be careful. Your biggest regret may be the time you spent trying to avoid all the others. If you apply advice on how to improve your marriage, remember, one misinterpretation and you may end up more committed to the book than to your partner. Be careful when following miracle diets. It may be that when you achieve the perfect shape, the only weight you lose is the weight of your common sense. When you read advice on how to be more disciplined, don't be surprised if you end up with a routine so rigid that even chance doesn't feel welcome. If you blindly follow advice on how to build your self-confidence, beware. One small mistake can make you so confident that even common sense becomes irrelevant. Beware of applying advice on how to be a successful person. You may find that success isn't quite what you expected when you follow it all. When you follow advice on how to maximize your time, beware. The only thing you actually maximize may be your list of worries. If you blindly trust self-help books on how to be a better leader, beware. You may end up with so many followers that you lose your way. When you read advice on how to avoid mistakes in life, remember, the biggest mistake may be to avoid all mistakes. Beware of following the latest tips on how to achieve the perfect work-life balance. You may lose both. If you rely too much on advice on how to live without regrets, be careful. You may end up regretting having followed too much advice. When applying advice on how to be more resilient, be prepared. You may become so resilient that even things that shouldn't affect you go unnoticed. Be careful about following all the tips on how to simplify your life. you may end up making everything even more complicated by trying to simplify it. If you blindly follow advice on how to be more charismatic, be careful. You may end up so charismatic that even you have trouble believing in your own charm. When reading about how to achieve a peaceful mind, be careful. You may end up so peaceful by following all the advice that you forget to take action. Be careful about following manuals on how to be more organized to the letter. One small mistake can make you so organized that you lose your spontaneity. If you rely too heavily on tips on how to be happier, be careful. You may only get frustrated at not finding the happiness you were promised. When applying advice on how to be more productive, be prepared. You may become so productive that you forget to be human. Be careful about blindly following advice on how to stay motivated. You may burn yourself out trying to keep the spark alive. If you rely too heavily on advice on how to be more creative, be careful. You may end up so creative that even your original ideas no longer feel authentic. When following all the advice on how to relax, remember, a single misinterpretation can make you so relaxed that even commitments lose their meaning. Be careful about relying on all the advice on how to find your true purpose. You may lose sight of all the other purposes along the way in your search for it. If you blindly follow advice on how to be successful in relationships, be careful. You may follow it so closely that the most important relationship is with the manual. When reading tips on how to adapt to change, remember, you may forget who you were before the change by trying to adapt too much. Be careful when applying advice on how to live in the present. You may forget about the past and the future while trying to focus on the now. If you blindly follow advice on how to be more independent, be careful. You may become so independent that you forget how to rely on others. When reading about how to achieve financial peace, be careful. You may find that once you achieve that peace, you may find that the only thing you've gained is worry about your next balance sheet. Be careful when following advice on how to be a good speaker. You may become so good at speaking that no one else will dare to listen. If you blindly trust advice on how to avoid career mistakes, be careful. The only mistake you avoid may be the one that would have led you to success. When you follow tips on how to improve your memory, don't be surprised if you end up remembering so many things that you forget the most important ones. Be careful when you follow all the advice on how to find emotional balance. You may forget how to feel in your search for balance. If you blindly trust advice on how to be more authentic, be careful. You may force something that should come naturally in your attempt to be so authentic. Be careful when you follow advice on how to be patient. You may end up so patient that you forget that life goes on while you wait. If you blindly follow advice on how to be more focused, be careful. You may focus so much on one thing that you forget everything else. Be careful when applying tips on how to be a more organized person. As you reflect on these powerful Mark Twain quotes, remember that wisdom lies not only in hearing them, but in applying them to your daily life. How many times have you found yourself stuck in limiting thoughts, or feeling like you weren't living your life to the fullest? Each of these quotes is a powerful insight to help you transform your mindset and live more authentically and courageously. If you feel inspired and want to continue this journey of personal development, be sure to watch the other videos on the channel. Each new quote can be the boost you need to face your challenges with greater strength and clarity.